With Session Update, I'm Julie Bartke. On Thursday, the Senate debated the Safe and Supportive Schools Act, also known as the Anti-Bullying Bill. It was initially brought forward last session, but made it to the floor for the first time for a full vote.
This issue is complicated and is often a function of a lack of leadership, a lack of recognition, a lack of appropriate measured response and intervention in real time. And we also know that schools can undertake activities and efforts to prevent bullying in the first place, and that's really the goal of this bill. If you read it carefully, you'll see that it really is a measured approach, and that it's really focused on the more important upstream work of prevention, and not a punitive approach, not a zero-tolerance approach. It's really not even focused on discipline and the like.
The Dibble proposal is $20 million a year, $19 million a year for your schools that is not paid for. There is nothing in the bill that pays for the $19 million a year. That's $38 million per budget of an unfunded mandate.
At every turn, our request for parental notification was rebuffed because there was some legal language that served as an excuse. Our contention was that parents should be involved in bullying in every way, because that is how it gets resolved. Parents love their children, and so I cannot understand why you would leave it to the discretion of the administration.
You know, I'm imperfect. We're all imperfect. Those kids who bullied me, I had to fight with, they weren't perfect. And it goes without saying we're all a little bit different too. But those differences make us unique. I personally embrace those imperfections and that uniqueness. That's what makes us human, right? There are a lot of problems with this bill, not the least of which is trust. In this bill, it is implicit, Madam President, that you don't trust parents, educators, or schools.
The most disturbing aspect of this is making the state bigger and the parents smaller. Parents ought to be at the heart of education of children. They ought to be at the heart of discipline of children. They ought to be at the heart of comforting children when they're bullied or distressed or have any other kind of a problem. But instead, we create a circumstance in which, yes, there's quote-unquote a presumption that parents will be notified, but no requirement that they're notified. Is the parent the enemy? Is mom or dad the person that we need to worry about in a circumstance in which a child has been bullied? I think not.
Members, I believe if laws like the Safe Support Act were enacted before and during my time on the Anoka-Hennepin School Board as its vice chair, that the ultimate tragedies that we had to deal with could have possibly been avoided. And we wouldn't have to sit here today and say, Tammy, Justin, we're sorry. We can't go back. But what I'm asking you is this, that not one more tear should be shed over the loss of a child who's been tormented without safety nets in place. No more tears now, members. Madam President, it's time to take action.
I am also a parent. I'm a mom of a 13-year-old in 7th grade, so I live through these issues every single day. I was also the president of the PTA in the elementary school, so I lived with these issues and questions all the time and regularly. I watched incredibly dedicated and well-meaning professionals struggle with these issues and these challenges because they didn't have the guidelines and the resources and the tools that they need. They spent a lot of time, spun a lot of wheels, and struggled because they didn't have the guidelines. And that costs money too. I think it's important that we realize that a lot of time and energy is being spent throughout our school districts because there have not been the guidelines and the tools that schools need in order to effectively deal with this very important issue that affects children every single day.
And so we're not talking about, gee, on the one hand, we've got what we have today, and then when we have this other thing, it's going to be a new day, and bullying is going to go away forever. If people think that That's just not true. And I don't think anybody in this body would suggest that that would be true. So what are we talking about here? And I think there's three things that we are talking about. And one of them is, and maybe the most important, is trust. And I really believe that this bill is going to change school districts, school governance in this state forever. And that's not a good thing.
I'm glad so many of you talk to a lot of superintendents and school board members, but you know who we talk to? I didn't hear anyone talk about sitting down with literally dozens of kids, numerous occasions, hundreds of kids over the course of several years, and their parents, and their teachers, and their counselors, and their social workers. In school districts where superintendents and others were telling us, oh, we're doing this just great. And I'm sure that superintendents are striving to do well by their kids, and principals are striving to do well by their kids, but something's not working.
The Secretary will close the roll. There being 36 ayes and 31 nays, the bill is passed and its title agreed to.